All right, guys, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee, and it's a nice day. It's the 2nd of May, 9:05 in the morning, and it's a little nippy out earlier. It's 68 degrees, high is 77. We're having really good weather. Tomorrow, 80, then 75, 73, 81, 86, then sometime next week, they're saying 94, then 100, then 99, but I'm not so sure we're going to see that. That's a far off prediction, maybe. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is connect the dots all over the world and show you how everything ties together. India, Pakistan, China, Iran, America, Israel, North Korea, Russia, Ukraine, of course, China. I think I said China. I'm going to put it all together for you. You're going to see it all fits together. And I'm going to show you that Trump economically was brilliant. He has basically destroyed Iran economically and China. And I'm going to show you how he's going to finish Russia off. We're going to get into all this. It's a long list of what's going on and a lot of moving pieces, but I'm quite confident, God willing, be able to show you how it all comes together. So while people are coming in, let me go and put my posts up and live stream, make sure we got a live stream, sound and picture, all the other little things that are important. We might get buffered today because this thing shows pop-ups and cuts the live stream off. The nerve of them to update something or install something and they cut the live stream off. That's sick that they could do that, but it cuts the live stream off. The nerve of them. I did manage to finally fix my Samsung, the new phone, so I can use it to broadcast YouTube now. Yeah, I actually fixed it. It took a lot of research, but I figured out how to do it. It was rather confusing, but I got it done. I've got a moderator here. Great. Okay, I'm going to get my posts up really quick while people come in. Bear with me. I'm going to be very quick on getting the posts up. If I talk too much during me putting the posts up, what happens is I make typos, and then I got to start all over again. Or correct. All right, how could I give somebody advice that they don't know? That would be dumb of me, wouldn't it? I'm going to get my email up and then we'll get going. Email is good if you want to send in a comment, a prayer request, a question, a toss request. Of course, you could do all that in the chat, but you could do it more privately by email because nobody really knows who sent it in. And I do check email and the chat during the broadcast. I'll be finished in a couple of seconds. Okay. Okay, being a Bible-believing site, Old and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise, then we'll get going. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. Just for prayer requests for PC, Papa Charlie, PC, Papa Charlie, pray for healing, no pain, peace, calm, and joy. We've been praying for PC, and PC had a medical procedure the other day, and the outcome was quite good. There was no really scary bad stuff found, and there might need to be a follow-up procedure. They don't know yet. It's from what I'm gathering. So just keep the prayers going. I would say it was so far so good. We're doing pretty good with it, I think. Beulah, the dog, Udini, jumped out again last night. I sat out there with her in the evening, and I gave her about a half hour, and she didn't jump or anything. And then I put her in, and I don't know, something was nagging me. Maybe she has to go to the bathroom again. I don't know. So I took her out about 10 o'clock, and I opened up the door, let her out, and then I didn't go out with her, and she jumped. So I had to go back, and I was real fortunate because she just went across the street where there's some friend dogs of hers. And I opened up the gate and I called her, and she was right there and came right back home. But it was really annoying. So a friend of mine who's a builder is coming over today, and he's going to help me see what we could do. I'm also going to look for a cable I have that I used to use on, well, anyway, it's about a 25-foot cable, and I'm going to find that. I hope today somebody's going to help me go through the house and look for it. And if I can't get this thing fixed, I'm just going to have to cable her. And what I might do is buy a second 25-foot cable and loop them together and just watch her so she doesn't get herself stuck or something. And then I have to get her a harness. So if I put it on the choke collar, which I'll have to do initially, I have to just sit there and watch her, period. But if I think Sunday I could probably get my hands on a harness for her, then I don't have to be that diligent. She could get herself wrapped around a tree or something, but she can't really get herself into trouble with a harness. So a long time ago, before we reinforced one of the fences, we had a harness on her, and she jumped with the harness, and I had to run outside and retrieve her. She, I believe, was on the ground and with 2 feet or something. She wasn't choking. She landed on the ground, but it was, I'm telling you, she's destroying my peace, So, please keep the prayers going, and I hope there's a resolution to this. I hope the Lord's not showing me she's too much of a problem or something like this. I don't know what to do. I really don't know. So appreciate the prayers, and maybe pray that the Lord resolves the situation and we don't have to get rid of it. She's a very sweet dog, like in the house. I mean, she's as sweet as you'd ever want to see a dog get. But when she gets out in the yard, she doesn't consider it my territory. She's thinking it's hers or something. I don't know. I have no idea. So I took her out this morning to the backyard, and I stood in front of a low gate that she easily jumps. We don't let her go out there. And I was waiting for her to go to the bathroom, and she didn't. She was upset that I was standing in front of the gate. I don't know. Anyway, appreciate the prayers. One way or another, I'm sure it'll resolve. She just drives me a wit's end. When my wife's here, she does the same thing. She jumps a lot too. I don't. All right. So, how did Trump bust out China? Well, it's a complicated story, but he did it. It's not manifesting in its fullness yet today, but it will be. It will be. Give it, I don't know, 2 weeks, a week. All right, let's talk about Iran first. Okay, China gets like 80% of their oil from Iran. Okay. Trump just put sanctions on any country or company. I think it's really aimed at a country more than a company. But I think if a company does it, he's going to hold the country responsible. So if you buy any petrochemicals or oil from Iran, he's going to put secondary sanctions on the country. That means India isn't going to be able to buy oil from Iran and China. If China does, China's going to get what Trump actually said with the secondary sanctions is this. He's not putting 50 or 100% tariffs on. He's blocking them from doing business with the United States. In other words, they can't sell anything into the United States. They can't invest anything in the United States. They probably can't even use banks in the United States. He could even freeze their bank accounts in the United States. You got it? Okay. So China has to go elsewhere to get their oil, which is going to cost them more because Iran gives them a sweetheart deal. Okay? Now, China's in very bad shape right now. You must understand they are in horrible condition economically. Trump did it. Okay? Factories are closing, layoffs. The ports are getting empty in China. There's nothing shipping out. People in America canceled huge orders, multi-million and billion-dollar orders of goods. Canceled. China's shipping companies are going to have to start laying off and parking their boats. Companies are going to go bankrupt in China. Okay? The domino effect of these layoffs and closure of factories and bankruptcies to come and all that is going to ripple through China because these people aren't going to be buying clothes. They're not going to be able to pay their rent, their electric bill, their phone bill, their car payments. They're not going to be able to buy things, go to restaurants, buy furniture, take vacations. They're going to fall apart. Who's going to come help China? Nobody. North Korea, Russia, they can't help them. Venezuela, what are they going to do? Venezuela might sell oil to them, but Trump will cut that off. We're going to talk about Russia selling oil to Iran in a minute. Don't worry, Trump has a plan for that. I'll show it to you. You'll see it. The Iran currency is down. Bad. Very, very bad. Like, toy money. Now, how the heck is Iran going to sell oil to China when their major port that they used to ship out 80% of their oil was destroyed? Not a little destroyed, not medium destroyed, devastated destroyed. Think what, 6 months to 18 months to rebuild it? A year probably. There's no prophetic time for that. So Iran has two other ports that are very small compared to that. 80% of the Iranian oil went out of this port that Israel apparently blew up, along with some factories nearby that were making weapons, a drone manufacturer that was selling weapons to the government of Iran. In other words, making military drones. They weren't making drones for second graders to bring to school on show and tell. All right. And an ammunition factory blew up, and a lot of other stuff in the vicinity of the pier blew up. And fires raged for 3 days very badly, and then I think around the fourth or beginning of fifth day, they did get it to it's controlled, smoldering still. Okay, so there's no real flames, okay, but the stuff is smoldering. It's still going to be looking for bodies another week, probably. So they haven't even finished cleaning up the wreckage, let alone rebuilding. So you could say Iran's oil revenue dropped by 80%. And their containers at that port, shipping containers, 40 footers, 26 footers, 20 footers, all that. 60% of that went through that port that no longer exists. But just in case China wants to buy oil from Iran, they're going to be facing a complete cutoff of commerce and investments with America. Is the back of Iran and China broken economically now? You better believe it is. Trump is not an idiot. He's a very intelligent character. And he understands money and economy and business extremely well, to the extreme. This is brilliant. Now, let's shift over to how the heck is Russia going to sell oil to China? Because they're friends, allies, they're very close. So how is he going to do it? Ukraine destroyed a minimum of 25% of the Russian oil refineries in recent weeks. Now, maybe some of them got rebuilt already. This I have no information on. And some people would think it was maybe as high as 30%. Okay, how's Trump dealing with that? I'm going to explain it to you, and you'll see it, and you'll understand it, and it's brilliant. Trump signed a deal with Zelensky, the leader of Ukraine, on the precious metals and minerals, a 50-50 split. So Zelensky in Ukraine has some trillions of dollars worth of this stuff. They haven't been able to mine it and get it out of the ground. America's had trouble mining this stuff and getting it out of the ground, even inside America. So I'm not so sure what a great deal it is, but I imagine labor is a lot cheaper in Ukraine and they probably can get it done. I would think it's possible for sure. So Trump gave Zelensky basically, we'll talk baby talk, a line of credit against the future income stream from this minerals and metals. So in other words, Zelensky has a checkbook that he could write checks to America for weapons for. How many weapons? 50 billion with a B, $50 billion of weapons. Is that a lot of weapons? It's a massive amount of weapons. So Trump doesn't have to front or pay for the weapons given to Ukraine. That's quite brilliant unto itself. And so Zelensky buys the weapons, and when the minerals and metals are mined and taken out, Zelensky's share of the profits to some percent, maybe 100% of the profits, or Trump may let him get away with paying half of the money that would go to Ukraine would go to Trump until the debt was retired. Something like that, I think Trump would do. Or Trump may just grab the whole 50% going to Ukraine and keep it until the debt is repaid. So what kind of weapons is Trump going to give Ukraine? Bearing in mind that Trump does not want Russia supplying China with oil. So how do you do that? The maximum range of any missiles ever given to Ukraine so far run in at about 192, 198 miles range. There's some variance, I guess, on the model. It's almost 200 miles. So what does Trump do to get rid of Russian oil? Well, it's not hard. He gives Zelensky missiles that America has that go out about 300 miles. Oh. What does that do? Well, it's probably going to knock down Russia's oil refinery damage from 25 or 30% that Ukraine's already done, probably get it up to 40 to 50%. And if it doesn't get up high enough, then Trump will give Zelensky 500 or 600 mile missiles. Plus, they'll do target packages for him. They may guide his missiles, stuff like that. So once they get Putin's oil knocked down just maybe 40, 50%, it makes it very difficult for Putin to sell everything to China. He has other customers. He can't lay off all the other customers and just supply China. Now, maybe Zelensky could get out to 60, 65% of the oil destroyed, the refineries destroyed in Russia. And then they may let Zelensky could start hitting ports and piers where Russia offloads the oil. You see how it goes? Hit pipelines. Trump doesn't have to stop at 300-mile range missiles. Now, there were just shipments of what they were calling F-16 parts coming into Ukraine. Now, we don't know for sure how many F-16s he has. It's not a lot. He doesn't have 300. He may have a dozen or even 2 dozen or maybe 2.5 dozen, but that'd probably be about it. So maybe these parts were better missiles for the F-16s. We don't know what it was. It could be just legitimate parts. And we don't know who's flying the F-16. Is it Ukrainian pilots? Is it NATO pilots, American pilots? Who's flying them? I don't know. Maybe it is Ukrainian pilots. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. And they could hit really deep into Russia. Okay? And there are F-16s that have stealthy characteristics. They're not like an F-35 or an F-22 or a B-1 or a B-2, but they're stealthy. Israel has some. They take the coating that's on the F-35 to make it stealthy, and they put it on the F-16, basically. Now, if the F-16 has a lot of extra fuel tanks and missiles and rockets and stuff hanging under the wings and the fuselage, those weapons are not stealthy, so the radar could pick them up, get a lock, and shoot them down. But the other side of the coin is this. If the F-16s that have that stealthy coating can get into Russia, drop their ordnance, drop their extra fuel tanks, they can get out stealthy because there's nothing hanging under the plane. Okay. And if they just take a lesser payload and they don't hang extra fuel tanks outside, or they can hang extra fuel tanks, and as they get into the critical area of Russia or get to the target or where they're in danger from missile fire and other aircraft taking them down, they could drop the fuel tanks and then continue the mission and get out of there. So, what Trump has done is basically, in a disguised way, declared more war on Russia by giving Ukraine $50 billion in weapons. A lot of which I don't think Russia has a countermeasure for that's very effective. Got it? North Korea declared war on Ukraine a few weeks ago. Probably some of you remember, you thought it was funny. And it was, but it's true. And now they're talking of him sending up to 200,000 troops to Russia to help in the Ukraine war. Now, his troops, even the ones he had in recently in Ukraine, a lot of them got killed and wounded, were commandos, special forces, you would say, maybe. And they did a fairly miserable job in Ukraine and suffered a lot of casualties. They didn't come out of this thing very good at all. But the dictator of North Korea doesn't care. It doesn't care. Send them over there anyway. And that's probably going to start happening. How's he going to get him there? Well, transport ships, which Russia might supply, or aircraft. I mean, it's not that hard to get them over there. NATO and America are not at war with North Korea. It would be out of character for them to go out and sink warships traveling to Russia. Scotland, okay, we don't get a lot of people from Scotland. Now, what a lot of you guys really need to understand fully is, like, Japan attacked America basically on trade problems and economy and things like that. What Trump is doing is painting Iran and China into a corner. And the only way out of that corner is war. Sure, they could submit to America. What would Iran have to do? Well, they would send a team of Americans in there to watch the demolition of the nuclear facilities. In other words, they would be reduced to rubble. And then there would be controls on their ballistic missiles. And Trump would tell them, you've got to stop with the proxies completely. And if Iran said yes to all those three things, what would happen? Sanctions would be gradually but continually lifted. And trade would be built up with Iran, and Iran would be forced into behaving like a non-Muslim terrorist state. So you don't see leopards change their spots. This is never going to happen. Jeremiah 49, the destruction of this Iran, which is called Elam, E-L-A-M, that's the old biblical name, is going to go down. The word I-R-A-N is not in the Bible. India is in 2 or 3 places, but it originally is from the word Indus, I-N-D-U-S, but the English translated I-N-D-I-A. So I-N-D-I-A is not really in the Bible. Something you would phonetically pronounce I-N-D-U-S is, but in prophecy, we don't read anything about India, okay? There's no prophetic passages in the Bible that mention India, so that it's just not there. The long and the short and the tall is just not there. But we're going to talk about India and how they fit in with China especially. And this could likely be more brilliance from Trump. We've got to watch for this. Trump and Modi get along. But I'll bring it in on that. So China has so many economic problems right now. You really don't understand how bad it is. Now, what about the economy in America? Well, the ports in America are getting emptier and emptier because there's no Chinese goods coming over here, because there's sanctions, orders are being canceled because they're too expensive to buy now. So there's less ships in the ports, down by half so far. And it's going to drop lower, much lower. That means port workers get laid off, then the truck drivers get laid off. There's less goods in the stores. They're saying that the retailers in America have enough for about 7 weeks. So they may start raising prices because they know that's all they're going to get for a while. And then when that 7-week supply runs out, the workers in the stores may get laid off, or they may find alternatives or something like that, right? What would China have to do to make peace with Trump? Well, basically just enter into good trade agreements with Trump. That is really about all that they got to do. And then Trump will reciprocate, but China's going to have to give Trump a sweetheart deal, low tariffs on American goods, and some reasonable, livable tariffs on, Chinese goods, I don't know, 10, 20%, 15, 8%. I don't know. But so work something out. I don't see China doing it. Nobody's knuckling under really with Trump's deals. I haven't seen any major country run out there and say, "Oh, okay, we're going to do this and that," and you know. Trump's now talking about sending, I believe, immigration prisoners to other countries, not just El Salvador. Not nice countries either. We'll see how that goes. China continues to stir the pot in the Asia-Pacific theater, conducting military exercises near Japan, near Taiwan, near the Philippines. North Korea keeps staging troops on the border with South Korea, doing missile tests in the waters that are supposed to belong to Japan, and all this nonsense. Now let's look into this from the perspective of China is very weak right now. China has problems with Trump, bad. Can China really afford right now to hook up with Pakistan in a very deep way? If a war breaks out between India and Pakistan, I mean a serious war, they have a war now. They're shooting at each other now. But are they really having a war? No. No. Pakistan's between a rock and a hard place. Okay? A major amount of their water's been cut off by Modi shutting the four dams down in the Kashmir region. So the amount of water getting into Pakistan is still up there because Modi has not deviated the rivers and the streams, but he hurt them. They can't make it in the long run, losing what they were 40% of their water or 60 or something like that. They can't hold up. So they're shooting at the Indian soldiers at the borderline. More or less as a way to show Modi of India that they intend to go to war if he doesn't turn the water back on. Now, if they try fighting India without China, they got a big problem. Massive problem. Modi is now looking good to take advantage of China's weakness. And get the land back that China took from him in 2020, which is only 23 square miles. But if you go back to around 1960, China took a major swath of land from India. They have land disputes. Maybe it was the other way around, but they have big land disputes over who owns what on the border areas. And they have had cross-border shooting in recent years and so forth with the military. So Modi may be using this opportunity with the problems with Pakistan So Modi might be using this to get into a fight with Pakistan and clean their clock, which he probably can do. But his big fear is China. But China would be an idiot to start a war with India when they're pretty much going to have to go fight a war with America. And they're pretty much going to have to help Iran so they can continue getting oil from Iran. What would be the next move we'd likely see militarily between Iran and Russia? Probably assemble a fleet of 30 to 50 warships, which they can both do easily. Send it over to the Persian Gulf. They would send submarines. They would send missile carriers, destroyers. I don't think China is dumb enough to send an aircraft carrier. What else? They would, basically say you got to let Iran sell oil to whoever they want. It's really, it's a mess, So Trump is really circling the wagons around China. This is heavily about China and Iran too, and Russia. North Korea is, they're worried about North Korea, but it's not as serious as Iran and China and Russia. They're worried about Venezuela and Cuba and Belarus, but it's not as important as the others. So China has got a problem because India is just going to pounce on grabbing land back that India now has when he sees that China's in a weakened condition. So you got to leave room for Iran and China negotiating with Trump. But I would say that that's, very slight chance of happening because it's just Trump is bullying them, pushing them, slapping them upside the head, and they don't like that. And Russia making a deal with Ukraine would make Trump happy in terms of sanction relief on Russia. But Russia's adamant about not doing it. You see, peace deals and ceasefires in these end times just aren't working. The best move for Iran, Russia, and China and North Korea, and you would include Belarus and Cuba, Venezuela, some others, is to basically fulfill Jeremiah 50:51 and Revelation 17:18 and attack America. And that's what they'll do. Because it's in the Bible. They may dance the peace talks with Trump, although I don't see that. They might. I don't see any sign of it. Iran cut off the negotiations with America because they said, basically that they gave an alibi, but they didn't like being pushed around by Trump. When you look at it, how the heck is Iran going to survive now? How? They can't sell their oil because they can't ship it. If China buys the Iranian oil, all commerce between China and America is over. If they don't buy the oil from Iran, they're in a lot of dire straits. They got to go somewhere else. They're going to pay a higher price. A higher price could be $10, $20 a barrel right now, which could really not cripple or break out the Chinese manufacturers. It's going to hurt them. Now, remember this. Trump's been bombing the Houthis like 6 weeks, every day, every night now, for a few weeks. He's used B-2 bombers, he's used F-35s, F-18s. I'm not sure about F-16s. They probably were there too. Their port's been blown up, the one controlled by the Houthis. Yet last night, the Houthis again launched a missile at us towards Haifa. And probably 1 or 2 million people went to the bomb shelters during the night. And that's what the Houthis are after, driving millions of Israelis to the bomb shelters. That's their game. So Trump is playing a game of chicken with Iran, China, Russia, and North Korea. Chicken is a game that was established in the 1950s with teenagers that were into cars and cruising. Back in the 1950s, up until the middle of the 1960s, you couldn't really buy a serious hot rod from an American car company like you can now. So kids would have to modify their own hot rods. It took skill. They'd put 2 4-barrel carburetors on the thing, change the grind of the cam, put different valves and lifters in, streamline the exhaust to stop the back pressure. They would use a higher octane fuel because they would change the rings and stuff to increase the compression ratio. So they would get more horsepower out of the thing, right? And these idiots that had nothing to do would go to a rural area like an abandoned airstrip or something like that. And they would separate from each other by some distance, whatever the, a quarter mile, 2 miles, whatever it was. It probably wasn't 2 miles. And they would aim their cars head on at each other, waiting to see who veered off course first to avoid the accident. And that was the loser. The other one was the winner. Now, this is Russian roulette with automobiles. It's an idiot's game, but it was played. And people, would get hurt. And that's what Trump's doing. Who's going to blink first? Iran, China, Russia, North Korea. And based on Bible prophecy, Trump loses. That's that. So he's playing a dangerous game. See, Trump can't really do well in attack on Iran. Forget what people are saying. Look at the Houthis. They're probably 10% as potent or as powerful as Iran. Okay? And last night they got another missile off. He's still pounding them. I did some research and I'm trying to figure out how they get hypersonic ballistic missiles up 1,400 miles from Yemen, which is about the distance to Haifa. How? It's got to be with radar guidance, in my opinion. And they were telling us a few weeks ago there were 4 Iranian warships floating around the Red Sea that were guiding. They were doing target location for the Houthis, okay? And they were, I believe, guiding the missiles. So the Houthis would conduct the launch, and then the Iranians would take over and guide the missile with their radar. But can an Iranian warship have enough radar to go all the way to Israel? Well, if they're at the top of the Red Sea and maybe they're sequentially, the ship radar, best case is 200 miles, I would say. So they could have put a few of them in the Red Sea to work like a team. The ship closest to Yemen picks up the missile and directs it, and then 100 or 200 miles away is another ship, and they pick it up and direct it, and they get it all the way to the top of the Red Sea, and now they're a lot closer to Israel, and they just let it fly. So we were told the Iranian warships left, but they never did. And that's, I think, the meaning behind what we've heard Trump say in the last 24 or 36 hours, that he will hold Iran responsible for every shot or missile or drone or whatever fired by the Houthis in Yemen. I believe it's because they are guiding the missiles towards the American warships and Israel using their ships. Hegseth made comments like that to Iran, and did Trump. And Netanyahu was peeved, as evidenced by the destruction of the port. Can Iran start modifying and streamlining the 2 ports they have now to push more oil out and also work 24/7? Sure. But what's to stop those ports from getting blown up by Israel? Or saboteurs or whatever, right? Well, Iran probably increased the security there by 3-fold, if not 4-fold. So it could be unlikely. It depends how many saboteurs Israel and America have on their payroll that have a legitimate right to be in these facilities. So they might need to be bombed or attacked by air, and that's a problem because Iran will fire back. But Trump's got Iran in enough of a bad place right now, and China in enough of a bad place right now, and Russia in a very bad place right now. He could just kick back and glide and see what they do. But their choice is not going to be to submit to Trump and make America king of the world. That ain't going to happen. Their response is going to be to get rid of America violently, so this doesn't happen again. And that's where we're headed. It's a lot of moving parts, and India is in this. And I think that's one of the reasons why India is just hovering around, waiting and positioning and moving their military pieces on the chessboard. So when they get the green light from Trump, they will attack Pakistan. I think they will. And Pakistan has to attack them. So the other side of that coin, which is also very valid, is Modi is waiting for Pakistan to attack them. Then he's squeaky clean. Boom. China's definitely going to help Pakistan if they possibly can. And America and Israel are definitely going to help India. When is this going to happen, this whole mess? Pretty soon. How long do you think Iran and China are willing to hold out? The reality is Trump outwitted them. All right. Let's go. Let's get into some other events. If this isn't enough, let's go to Syria. The HTS government, which is Giuliani, the guy that's running Syria now, is kind of looking the other way, letting some militias of Sunnis, violent Sunni Muslims, build up and annihilate the Druze. In other words, genocide. These militant groups were talking about, infidels, and they got to kill them. There's 600,000 to 760,000 Druze in Israel. We don't know how many. Nobody took a census under Bashar Assad. They're all over Syria. They seem to be concentrated around Damascus and in the south. We have a buffer zone that goes almost 40 miles into Syria, ending a few miles outside of Damascus. And we know Damascus is going to be a Runa seat. So there's been clashes with the Syrian National Army, the regular army, and these Druze have organized into militia units themselves to defend themselves. And the HTS is acting like they want to protect the Druze from the Sunni militias that want to kill them. You got to understand, you're talking here about a Holocaust. A Holocaust. And you're not reading it in the papers because the papers are pro-Muslim and they don't want you to understand what the Muslims do. Not every one of them. The UAE doesn't do this, Saudi doesn't do this, Kuwait doesn't do it, but some of them do. And it's really horrific. Now, we've also learned the Bedouins, that's another sect of Islam in Syria, are now going after the Druze.
Okay, I found this on the web for Are You Now Going After the Jews? Check it out.
All right, shut up. I don't even know how that got turned on. Okay, so Israel has a lot of, well, there's 120. Sorry, that was that stupid pop-up from Android. Okay, sorry, we're good. So how many Jews live in Israel? 120,000. Nowhere near what's in Syria. Nowhere near. You have some in Lebanon, and it's about, I don't know, 900,000 in the Middle East, something like that. The big concentration is in Syria. Bashar Assad seemed to be at peace with them. This new government, which is basically Al-Qaeda and or ISIS with a new paint job, are into genocide. They like killing Muslims. They kill the Muslims that are not in their particular, let's call it, denomination or division or sedition, right? They brutally kill them. They genocide. They're vicious. So they've gone after the Alawites, killed a lot of them, persecuted them. They've gone after Christians, taken their cars and their houses away. Have they, and they've hurt them, physically killed them. Have they ever given the houses and the cars back? No. No. So Israel is protecting the Druze in our buffer zone in southwest Damascus. There's a lot of Druze villages, neighborhoods, enclaves, towns in and around Damascus. And that in and around Damascus area is where the heat is right now. Okay? Turkey has no intentions that I could detect anywhere of doing anything one way or the other about this. In other words, Turkey's not going to defend the Druze as far as we can see, nor is he going to fight against HTS government, which is his puppet. You know, he's just staying out of it, okay? America's not doing anything. Who are Satan's chosen people? Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Iran. Do you have it? Did you get it yet? So Satan's chosen people are fighting against Jehovah's chosen people. There you have it. It's not that complicated. You don't hear that from anybody else, do you? No. No. So we did 5 bombings yesterday, including dropping a bomb not far away from the mansion the new president, Giuliani, of Syria lives in, to send a message, cut it out with the Druze. What's the response to them going to be? Well, 50% they'll say okay and make it end, okay? The other 50% would be, it's not us, it's these militant groups. We're trying to suppress it. We want to stop it, but we can't. That kind of garbage, like the Lebanese government talking about Hezbollah and stopping them. Okay? They never did it, and they never will. So now comes a twist. There are Druze in the American military, the Israeli military, and several hundred of them have been begging the guy named Katz, our defense minister, to let them go to Syria to defend their Druze relatives and families. They're begging him. They listen to the government. They're not saying, we're going, you can't do anything about it. They're begging him. Is this cry going to go unheeded? No. It's not going to be ignored. They'll initially tell the Druze and the soldiers, listen, we're on it. We bombed them 5 times yesterday. If they do it, the next time we'll bomb them 25 times. The next time, 50 times, and they will. Israel will. And they're not going to let a renegade, wild band of, they're not going to let a bunch of Druze soldiers just go act on their own. They're not going to do that. They might tell them, if you want to go in, request a leave for 30 days from the military to help your relatives, and you'll get it. And then whatever you do is whatever you do, and then they'll look the other way when they cross the border into Syria. But they're not going to give them, armor or artillery or soldier-fired weapons or intel or air support, because it's renegade. There's no unity. They're just running off doing their own thing. Israel won't work that way. But Israel may send the military formally in there to save the Druze. Why is Israel doing this? Well, you shall have no other gods before you. And these Druze have another god before them that's not a god. So going around and waging war and helping them over this is to bring Israel into sin. That's what the leader is, the lousy Netanyahu is doing. But he also wants to get votes and popularity with the Druze. Is there going to be a war in Syria? Well, it's hard for me to put the pieces together. HTS government in Syria cannot hold up against Israel. It wouldn't be 24 hours. It would be a week. They would be kaput. They don't have any missiles to speak of to shoot at us. They had nothing. It'd take about a week. That would need a lot of Israeli soldiers. We just called up tens of thousands of reservists, allegedly for Hamas. But Hamas is pretty neutered right now. So we could send a bunch of soldiers. HTS had 70,000 soldiers when they kicked out Bashar Assad. And they unified with, they may have up to 100,000 soldiers. They have no air force to speak of, no navy to speak of, no missiles to speak of, or no missiles at all is more likely. So what are they going to do? Nothing. They do nothing. If they try, they'll just go down. It'll take a week probably. Now, will Turkey just sit there and let us, mow the lawn of HTS that they've been backing? That's $1 million question. I don't know. Would Israel occupy Syria? Look at it. Take a look. Oil wells, oil refineries, stuff like that in Syria or northwest Syria, pretty far from Israel. By Turkey, by Iraq. Well, not so close to Iraq even, but America's been depleting the soldiers on the bases at a steady rate because they see violence coming into Syria, very likely from Iraq missiles and drones coming in to hit the bases as well as Iranian. So to cut their losses, they're reducing troop levels, probably just to a minimalist level to maintain the forts and the facility, military facilities, the bases, and keep the bases there to make sure nobody kicks them out of that area with the oil refineries, because while there wouldn't be a lot of soldiers there, what can a soldier with his rifle do on a battlefield today? Precious little. They would be able to very quickly call in airstrikes from nearby countries, which would come in 10 minutes flight time or 5-minute flight time or 14 minutes, something very... Air support would be abundant and fast. And that's what really counts. But Israel may try to take Syria. This is what might be at the back of Netanyahu's mind. And he may have worked this out with Trump. Elam being destroyed, part of Elam is considered to be part of Syria as well as Iraq. So the Elam destruction in Jeremiah 49 is very likely concerning Iran, Iraq, and Syria. And we know Damascus will be a run of seat. Iraq gets it. It gets it pretty bad, but Yemen, which is Edom in the Bible, gets devastated, so it's a wasteland. And Iran gets devastated so bad, according to Jeremiah 49, the people have to leave and they scatter into all the other countries of the world where the sword chases them and cuts them off. So they're on such a hit list from Jehovah, you might say. It's incredibly bad for them. They've been making trouble for Israel, ever since right after they took power. Was the Shah of Iran making trouble for Israel? No. Did he have a problem with Jews? He didn't go after Jews. What was the Shah's game? Money and more money and more money yet. That was his game, period. What would Trump get out of it? Well, he's pulling his troops out of Syria. Israeli troops go in. Remember, America plays Israel as a puppet state. So we go in, right, to Syria, and then we make sure those oil refineries and facilities are going to stay secure for the American companies. We're on the border now with Iraq, so we could wipe out Iraq when the time comes if they attack the American bases. And what do we do about Turkey? Well, that's the wild card. I don't know what the heck we do without Turkey. I guess Israel just tells Turkey, hey, look, sucker, you be in Syria, we be in Syria too. That's the way it is, buddy. What do you want to do? Slug it out? Your palace and your family are our primary targets. We'll target assassinate you right off the top. What do you want to do, sucker? That's basically it. Erdogan's been talking about wiping out Israel for year after year after year. Erdogan is not a bright person. This is no Trump. This is not the brightest light in the harbor. This guy has the same problems year after year after year. He never works his way out of them. He's too stupid. I should say. This thing can't get advanced stealth jets out of anybody. Nobody trusts him with it. Maybe he would leave. Maybe Trump will call Erdogan up on the phone and tell him it's time to leave. Or maybe it says, you and Israel could divide Syria up. HTS, we can't have HTS, Erdogan. They're killing the Alawites. They're killing the Christians. Now they're killing the Druze. How can we support a bunch of morons like this? They're doing Auschwitz on the Muslims. How can we do this? You think Erdogan's going to turn around and say, well, Donald, the Muslims are just reaping what they sow, so just let it happen. And well, I might say something like that, but he wouldn't. Trump, Erdogan, listen, we can't have this. How could I support some idiot that goes around annihilating, committing genocide publicly and openly? I mean, how do we do this? We can't have this. You have to understand, let the Israelis deal with it. It's their problem. They're the garbage collectors. Let them clean it up. And then Netanyahu starts thinking and saying, well, this is a great opportunity for something. I don't really know what, but yeah, let's do it. Who would Trump rather have running Syria? This lunatic Al-Qaeda ISIS jackass who is controlled by Turkey named Giuliani? And he's got this crazy militant groups now that are doing genocide for him? Or Israel, who does, hey, Netanyahu, Trump here, what's happening? Hey, how's your wife? What's going on? Hey, listen, I need you to go do a targeted assassination on this guy. Sure, just send me the specs. I'll get right on it. What's your time frame? Oh, I don't know, Netanyahu, maybe this week or next week. No problem, we'll kill him for you. That's the kind of relationship going on. I mean, it's Netanyahu, it's Donald Trump. Jump. Yeah, okay. How high, Mr. Trump? This is what's going on. Now, at the same time, Netanyahu is acting as a consigliere, to use the Godfather term, an advisor to Trump on what's going on in the Middle East and how to manipulate the situation favorably. And so far, it looks like Netanyahu's been giving Trump pretty good advice. I mean, look at the vice. He's got Iran in right now. He's tightening it on their head. Their brains are ready to pop out. 80% of the Iranian oil can't ship. If China and Russia bring 50 warships to the Persian Gulf, they can't offload the oil into the ships. It's not a highly likely event to see China and Russia do that. It's not going to relieve their problem. Can China just send their own oil tankers over there? Yeah, but they're going to have to dock at sea. They got no port to hook up at. There's no tanks of oil at the port to offload into the tanker ships. Iran is basically walking a plank on a ship with Trump standing behind them, prodding them in the back with a sword. Come on, keep going, until they fall into the sea with their hands tied and, stuff like that, and they can't swim, and, sick thing like that. But Iran is a sick country. I see nothing but based on end times, wars breaking out all over the place. Now, let's talk about other, let's call it ancillary events. And there's a lot of them. I'll give you the list. I'll read them off to you. Argentina, 5.4 earthquake. Earthquakes are up. Volcanoes are up. Crazy weather is up. Storms, snow, everything is up. Fires are up. We got the fires contained in Jerusalem and Israel, by the way. Israel would bomb Damascus if the Giuliani HTS government keeps going after the Jews. That's his capital, where he runs things. That's where his palace is. Damascus shall be a ruinous heap. Maybe this is it. I don't know for sure. I can't say, but maybe. It's a contender for being it. Remember, the Houthis have taken down 13 very, very expensive Reaper drones, probably costing America $1 billion or some crazy figure. And America's peeved, but the Houthis are that good. How good are the Iranians? So Trump doesn't just want to run in there like gangbusters and start a war with them, because it's a very tough, hard, long war, probably with a lot of damage to American soldiers and equipment. So breaking them down. We got those two ports, that big port. Maybe we can go back and get the other little ports if they don't give in. Taking care of the ports so they can't sell stuff or bring stuff in is pushing this thing close to the people having to leave the country. Add in the water, the electricity, the bridges, the highways, the railroads, and now you're getting there. So, you got to know the volcanoes is columns of smoke in Mark 13, and the earthquakes, many earthquakes in diverse places. Both of these things are birth banks. You got to pay attention, and they're on the rise. They're not massively on the rise, but they're quite noticeably on the rise. And the fires. North Carolina, I think South Carolina, California, New Jersey. I don't know where the latest ones are. They're probably somewhere. Hamas went out and publicly made a plea for people to start more fires in the Jerusalem area and in the West Bank. So we know they're behind it, probably Iran too. breaking off the negotiations with Trump is tantamount to telling Trump, we're not making a deal with you. Trump gave them a deadline initially of May 7th. We're on May 2nd now. Do I think Trump's going to be the one to bomb Iran first? Well, looking the other way regarding the port, I don't think he is. I think he's going to wait for the Iranians to attack first. They could try preemptively hitting Diego Garcia or Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, hit their there's no chance or no active plans for a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, by the way. Oh, Russia had a 3-day ceasefire or something like that. I thought we were going to come off this holiday yesterday, but not a chance. So it started Wednesday night, but people pretty much didn't go to work Wednesday in Israel. It's Independence Day. And of course, Israel's making a big thing out of this because we're at war all the time. So they want the nationalist spirit and all that. So you got no work on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday, and Saturday. So they made it into a 4-day holiday. So it's not going to peter out until Saturday night, Sunday. Remember, Trump is likely going to do the stimulus package, giving people $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, I don't know how much. And that will compensate the loss of business due to the sanctions and stuff like that. It'll really bolster the economy back up some. Also remember that silver is amazingly high. It's sort of found a phony level of mid 3300s, like 3350 and around there, give or take a few bucks. A lot of you younger people don't know, but I remember around the year 2000, maybe the late 90s, the very early 2000 years, gold was in the 240 range. I remember when silver was $4 an ounce. That's when I bought this bracelet, and I have a couple other pieces. They were dirt cheap. It was dirt cheap to get silver, and gold they were making jewelry out of gold. It was nothing. It was not an expense. Everybody was getting gold rings. Now you see silver rings, stainless steel rings, titanium rings. You get a ring and it has, let's say a half ounce of gold. It's $1,700 in gold. Well, less because there's only 14 carats. It's probably about $1,200 in gold. Where, the things used to be, $150 for a ring, something like that, Now, the ring could be more. The ring could have 3/4 of an ounce or an ounce or 2 ounces, People used to buy these big neck chains, Cuba Link, they called it. And they were pretty thick. And these things would have 6 to 12 ounces, depending if you had a 16-inch, 18-inch, 20, 22, 24-inch, And, some would be a pound, And people used to get these Mexican, I think it was an octagonal or a hexagonal $50 Mexican or 50 Mexican peso big coin, a big Mexican coin, and put it in a frame and attach it to the chain. So if you were going to get a 10-ounce chain, which is no big deal, you'd be at $33,000. And then, well, if it was pure, so you'd be at $28,000 or $27,000 for a neck chain, that's maybe 18 inches, 20 inches, something like that. Who buys that now? Nobody's buying that. They routinely were making watches out of gold back then because it wasn't a major expense. A Rolex, which is considered not a very heavy watch, but a Rolex President has about 4 ounces of gold in it. So today, you'd be looking at, I don't know, 13,000. Well, because it's 18 karat, you'd be looking at $11,000 of gold just in the bracelet. So the whole jewelry thing is changing with it so expensive, and you ain't seen nothing yet. Iran is fully capable of taking out the oil refineries in the Middle East, some or all. Not a problem. I think they could do it a number of different ways. And that will drive oil through the roof, and that is going to push gold, at least $5,000 an ounce. So imagine what that does to somebody that wants to buy a ring with a half ounce of gold. So you're at over $2,000 just for and then you got to put the stone in it or whatever you're going to put in it, right? So gold watches will be a thing of the past, but the world's going to be a thing of the past when we hit the end of the age, redemption. But it's going to be, could gold hit 10,000? Like some people bring it up to $40,000, $50,000 an ounce. It could. I would say to see it between $5,000 and $10,000 an ounce would be not anything that would surprise me. Its value as jewelry will go through the floor, it's going to drop. Who's going to buy, if gold's 10,000 an ounce and you buy a gold watch with 4 ounces of gold, you're at $40,000 plus workmanship, plus the watch. It's going to make sales drop. Rolex is going to have to start making a stainless steel President, and the people that make the complicated watches are going to have to make them in stainless steel, which they never liked doing. The whole watch thing is crazy. You can go out and go to Amazon for $30 to $50, get yourself a Casio digital watch that's waterproof as deep as a Rolex diving watch. Maybe you'd have to spend $100, okay? It'll take you, but you don't need a diving watch that's waterproof at 600 feet. You don't need a diving watch that's waterproof for 330 feet either. If you get a watch that's waterproof for 50 or 100 feet, you can go, rowboating, you could go in the jacuzzi, you could go in the shower, you could go in the swimming pool, you could go fishing with it, you could go out on the lake with it, you could go Maybe water skiing is a little much. You might have to get something that goes to 330 feet or something like that. Okay. This thing is more accurate than anything Rolex has, except the Rolex quartz watches, which are pretty much, for all practical purposes, about the same as the cheap Casio, except the quartz watch from Rolex is going to keep better time, but they're both so ridiculously accurate. It's like the difference between shooting somebody with a 9mm and a 44 Magnum. You're shot. The time's right, and these watches are, better in every respect, except they're not a Rolex or a Patek Philippe and stuff like that. And people want to keep continuing buying, Rolex and Lang & Sons and Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet and blah, blah, Breitling and blah, 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 blah. You go to Omega or Breitling, you want to buy a nice quartz watch from them in stainless steel, you're going to spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. You can get yourself a Casio or a Citizen on the higher level for a few $100. It's ridiculous, And now the China scandal with a lot of these Swiss watches being made in China or partially in China make it better. The thing with the Swiss watch is these people talk about the movement. They don't even understand the movement. And then they buy these watches that have a sapphire crystal back so they can take the watch off and look at the movement move. So you want to buy a watch for tens of thousands of dollars so you could take it off your wrist and watch the pendulum thing move around. They're automatic watches, which means they have things that spin that wind the spring that drive the watch. So you've got to keep the thing moving all the time. Or not, you don't really have. If you're reasonably active, you walk, you cook, you shower, you go outside, you do that, you're going to be okay. But they're nowhere near as accurate as a $20, $30 Casio. They're just not. They got magnetism problems. You can get the watch magnetized near a computer, near appliances have magnets, near refrigerator magnets, near any kind of magnet, right? So you got to demagnetize it. But the watch industry doesn't tell the people you got to get on Amazon and buy a $13 watch demagnetizer. And you put your watch on it, you put the bottom of it, you put the top of it and the sides on it, and you click a button and it goes, whoop! It takes a second. So you got to do it 4 times. So the whole process with moving it maybe 30 seconds. And then your watch is going to return to good time. No, they don't tell you that. They want you to take that automatic watch and send it into the factory and they'll service it, which means they probably demagnetize it themselves. And they charge you $600 or $800. Oh, they'll do other things. They'll polish the bracelet in the case. How much does that take? And they'll lube it, and they'll do a few things to it for sure. But they're about finished with the gold price about to go crazy, and the scandal from China about them making stuff in China. Well, they're going to start selling these watches cheaper, but they can't sell that cheap because they're gold. The high-end watches are normally all gold. Now, some of them have a leather bracelet. Many of them have a gold bracelet. They have some platinum high-end watches, not a lot. Platinum is rather heavy and rather costly, but cheaper than gold. But it doesn't have the same luster of gold. So what they really goes is regular yellow gold. Then you have rose gold, which I think is prettier. Then you have white gold, which a lot of wealthy people that live in places like New York and LA and stuff like that, they like buying a very expensive watch made in white gold because it passes for stainless steel. So if they're on a subway and they're holding on and their wrist is sticking out, somebody might follow them off the subway and hit him in the back of the head with a blackjack or something and stun him and just slide their $75,000 wristwatch off their wrist, open it and take it away, and sell it to some fence and get $5,000-$10,000 for it. Probably more like, 5,000. But some of these watches are $200,000-$300,000. So, he's still not going to get, but he get a few $1,000s. That's a good score, And what do they do with that watch? Well, they wind up selling it somehow, I don't know exactly how to do it. But they sell it. Maybe they get it out of America. The fence sneaks it out of America into another country and they sell it in the other country or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's an interesting industry. Okay, let's keep going. There's more stuff. Let's talk about that F-18 jet that fell off the aircraft carrier. How come only one such jet fell off the aircraft carrier? They usually have a bunch of them, a dozen or so scattered around on the deck. How come only one went? The Housie says they shot it down. What's the real story? I don't know. These decks are 60, 70 feet off the water, something like that. So the pilot, they said, survived. So that means the pilot's in the plane. So why would the pilot be sitting in a parked plane? Oh, he could be sitting in a parked plane because they were waiting to see if they needed him to do something and then they would launch him. That makes sense. That really makes sense. But if he was okay, it means he was in the plane when it went off the deck. So by the time the pilot sees what's going on, I mean, is he going to pull the ejection? Is that what he did? They didn't tell us he did. I don't know if they could eject. I mean, by the time he thought about it and then said he's going to eject, would have to be, this is such an unusual event. They're not trained for the aircraft carrier swerving and flinging the plane off the deck. They don't have training like that. What do? Take them all out, put them in a mock airplane on the deck of an aircraft carrier, swerve it, and then they fall into the water to know what it's like? I don't think so. That doesn't make any kind of sense to me. It just doesn't. So I would say he probably loses, 2 seconds thinking about whether or not to eject. And you got to remember, when he fell off the deck, this is the deck, this is the plane. Did the plane just slide off like this? Or perhaps the deck shifted and the plane went like that. And if he ejected, he'd be ejecting at some crazy angle and wouldn't get up high enough. So it would be like jumping off the roof of a 5 or 10-story building into the water, which could be survivable. Or maybe the plane went and it tilted, and if he ejected, it would fling him into the water at great speed and kill him. So I expect he didn't eject, but maybe he did. But we don't know what really happened. Maybe they did get the plane shot as it was coming in to take a landing or something like that. Or they shot the plane as it was taking off or something. We don't know. But why only one plane? Very suspicious, isn't it? They're not telling us. I don't know. But I can tell you one thing. It seemed to make the American military establishment angry. The Iranian foreign minister said this about the negotiations. The American side will bear responsibility for the destructive consequences resulting from America's contradictory behavior and provocative statements. So Hegseth and Trump are threatening the Iranians at the same time. Trump saying, well, I don't want to blow them up. I'd rather make a deal with them. No. The Iranians are playing this game. They're not going to show weakness, but they are, but not that much. So they're having a game of chicken with Trump too, as is China. And maybe even North Korea. So here's the breakdown. I found it on the Druze people in the Middle East, which is really where they all are. There's 1,020,000 Druze in the Middle East, 120,000 in Israel, so 10% maybe. 280,000 in Lebanon and 600,000 in Syria. That's it. So, I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing to just sit there and try to put all these pieces together. There's so many moving parts and so many things going on at the same time. It's just incredible. It's just incredible. Does Trump want Israel to take over Syria and build a resort there? I don't think so. It doesn't have the weather of Gaza. I don't think so. Not that great of an area, you know. Gaza got beautiful Mediterranean beaches with a very warm season for much of the year. Probably 8 or 9 months. It's good weather. That's pretty good. It's rare to find a place that has good weather for 12 months without being stifling hot, you know. Let's see what's going on in the live stream, if I'm getting questions or things like that. It's nice if you'd subscribe if you want to find out what's going on predominantly in the Middle East. Although I get pretty good tracking from India now. I've got a very intelligent buddy in India that's a believer, and he helps me understand a lot of what's going on over there. I'm in the Galilee, not anywhere in Tel Aviv. Where will it start, Iran or China? Iran, I think. China would want to see Iran weaken America first. Cyber warfare is up. Power outages are up. All this stuff. Yeah, someone was mentioning that stuff. I'm reading the chat, guys, like I say I do. They're saying the jet fell out of or off the deck, the hangar, I guess you mean the deck, and the crew jumped out of the low vehicle and well, maybe the crew did, and maybe they did open the canopy. They'd need tools for that, or maybe the pilot opened it, and maybe the plane fell with the canopy sticking up and the wings out. I don't know what happened. I know the Houthis said they shot it down, and I know the Houthis are big liars, but maybe they did. It's just such a crazy thing. No, I'm not a Vietnam War veteran. I was never in the military. I have a law enforcement background for some years when I was very young. And when I was not so very young, I worked in something that you don't have in America, but be like reserve police for Israel. I did that, but that was many years ago too, but I wasn't young anymore. I'm not sure what happened, but look, if the jet fell in the water because the aircraft carrier had to swerve, the aircraft carrier had to swerve because something was coming at it dangerously close. A missile, an anti-ship missile, a drone, you name it, it was coming at it. And even if it didn't hit the jet, the Americans are ticked off at the Houthis over that. It cost them a jet. What do those things cost? I mean, they were a lot of money. There's all different models of F-18s. Some are cheaper than others, but they're not. It's not a $100,000 SUV. I mean, it's an expensive item. And they also took down at least 13 Reaper drones. I don't know what's up with that. I'm not buying the story that they could shove missiles 1,400 miles up into Israel from Yemen. Hitler's V-2 rockets. Let's talk about those. They plagued London. They made the people go down into the subways. Okay, they had about 1,000-pound warhead. Okay, they used an accelerometer and a gyroscope. Now, let me take a break and I'll break this down to you. And that's, there's a lot of lies going around about ballistic missiles. I'll be right back. So let's talk about how ballistic missiles work and how they don't work, and then I'll make you quite aware of the lies the governments are telling you. Okay? It's easy, it's quick. An accelerometer, Accelerometer. It's basically a speedometer. It's something they put in the missile. Hitler had it in the 1940s. He had it in the V1 and the V2 missiles, or rockets, whatever you want to call them. They were missiles. And it would calculate basically how fast the missile was going. Okay? Then they have a gyroscope. Now, when you were in junior high school and high school, you probably saw your teacher show you a gyroscope, What does a gyroscope type thing do? Well, it keeps the ship, the Navy ship, or it keeps the aircraft or the missile from flopping around and spinning and all this crazy stuff. So it keeps it on a level path. So the pilot's head would be, straight up, and the ship doesn't try to sail on its side, that kind of thing. It keeps things relatively straight and stable. Got it? How the heck does that guide it to a target? It doesn't. Oh, they're using the GPS systems of the various countries on the way from Yemen to Israel. Maybe, but Israel's GPS system right after October 7th, it ain't being used anymore. My wife punches the GPS system in here in Israel, and it tells us we're in Lebanon. Why? Because it tells the Hezbollah, we're up in the north, up in Lebanon, it makes them think they're attacking their own country. That's when you laugh. It's true. But it's funny, but it's true. Haifa's in the north. Haifa's probably 20 or so miles from Lebanon. How does it travel, a few hundred miles through Israel? How does it negotiate? Well, let's see. What are the party line stories going to tell you? Oh, it has a laser-guided system. Well, there are laser-guided systems, but not like that, okay? You could paint. I know a guy that, what he did in the IDF is they would go into countries that were at war with us. Syria would be one. And they would find the target. He was a commando, and they would find the target. And they would paint it with a laser till the aircraft picked it up. And then it would get a lock with the missiles fired from the aircraft and go. You could get the missile to go through the guy's door or his window. You got it? That's how those things work. Can they work at a greater distance? Yeah. Maybe you could get it to work for, a few miles. But it ain't working 1,400 miles. You're not going to go up on a roof of a building in Yemen and take your laser and point it at Haifa and the missile's going to follow it. Okay, of course not. Okay. So that's just, I think, another bogus BS story of theirs. Okay. That's all I think it is. And what about they got optical mapping system? Oh, golly gee, let's dissect that one. So while the missile is flying, it is taking pictures, and if it's night, it has to have an infrared camera so it could read the ground at night. Oh, let's stop for a minute. Now, are we talking about a cruise missile going at 100 or so feet off the ground? Well, then the camera's going to read the ground. Now, we're talking about a missile going 18, 20,000 feet off the ground. Now, we got to believe that this missile, or even 10,000 feet, has got a camera that at night is so good, it's going to be able to read the ground and know where the heck it is. Oh, how big is that database? It's flying over a forest or a desert. What does it have? The sand, the grains of sand mapped? The leaves on the trees are mapped? Use your head. How the heck are they making these things work? How? I want to know. It doesn't make sense that they're taking pictures and then the computer in the missile is analyzing the constant feed of pictures, comparing it to maps, and trying to use its computer brain to figure out where the heck the thing is. Did you ever hear of a thing called wind currents? Have you ever been outside and felt the wind? Of course you have. Have you ever heard that wind is the biggest danger to cruise ships that have 12 to 20 decks high above the deck because it could blow the ship over? That's the force of winds. Did you ever hear the pilots on an aircraft liner, a private plane that you're traveling on, say, well, we made good time because we had a tailwind and it pushed us forward faster? Usually it goes about 50 miles an hour faster. How about that? Now, let's take a look at what that wind force would do to a missile. It's going to move it sideways or even up or down, depending on the direction of wind, but definitely it's going to push them left and right. Right? And the speed of the missile would be increased if it was a tailwind and decreased if it was a headwind, right, in the front. So how does this gyroscope and this accelerometer, which is a fancy word for a speedometer, it's supposed to measure vibrations and stuff. Yeah, okay, fine. How the heck does that do it? So what did Hitler do? Hitler had the gyroscope to stabilize the missile so it didn't wobble around, and stuff like that, right? Okay. And it had an accelerometer, and that was measuring the speed of the missile. And what were they doing? Most of these missiles they were firing were probably, they were not more than 200 miles from the UK area they were trying to hit. So we could assume that they could get some good destructive damage done with missiles at less than 200 miles away without having any super sophisticated guidance. So they would point the missile where they wanted it to go. And the gyroscope just leveled the thing. It wasn't calculating where the missile was and stuff like that. The speedometer would tell them how fast it was going. And then they had a thing in there that calculated when the missile would likely be over London or some other city in England. And when it was likely covered that much territory, the fuel would cut off the missile. It would just stop. So the engine of the missile would stop burning fuel. It would start to descend. And that's how they did it. Okay? So was it possible they missed the whole city of London altogether? Yeah. That's how accurate it was. They missed the whole city of London. But they weren't taking 1,400 mile shots. Okay? So something's guiding that missile. Now let's talk about a missile being shot from Russia, crossing over the Atlantic Ocean and hitting New York or Washington, D.C. Okay? How the heck is a laser guided missile going to work over the ocean? Oh, it's going to shine the laser on the water and it's going to get some indication where it is in the ocean. Yeah, tell me another one. How about the optical system? Oh, yeah. It's going to read the water in the Atlantic Ocean and it's going to know what water is where. Oh, that doesn't work because the water's constantly moving with waves. Oh, gee, we just exposed their entire cock and bull story, didn't we? Now let's talk about shooting the missile up into the atmosphere, all the way up into outer space, having it travel at an amazingly fast rate of speed in outer space, get over Washington or New York or whatever the target is, and then drop down straight at an amazingly rate of speed and destroy the place. Now, if you don't believe the Bible, you're not going to believe this. Well, you might. I don't know. It's up to you. But what I'm going to do is get into the Bible with you very quickly and go to Genesis chapter 1 and debunk all this bullcrap about getting into outer space and space stations and all the other crap they throw at us. Genesis 1, is it verse 7? And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And then the water under the firmament, he made the oceans and stuff like that, and then he made the land. But the water on the other side of the firmament is still there. When they had the Noahic flood, Noah, his name is really Noah, but we'll call him Noah. When the Noah flood came, God opened the firmament and the windows of heaven, let the water come down. And then he brought it up from the earth and they had rain and everything else. So on the other side of the firmament is what? A gazillion tons of water. So is the firmament made out of balsa wood? No, I don't think so. How about potter's clay? I don't think so. How about 2-inch thick steel armored plate? I don't think so. It's something that God knew how to make that we don't understand that keeps all this water out there. And if it keeps the water out, it's a solid. And if the water is there, how can space be a vacuum? Makes no sense to me. How can you have satellites 25,000 miles up into space that would have to break through the firmament? How could you have a space station up there that they'd have to break through the firmament? If they managed to break through the firmament, there would be gazillions of tons of water coming down on the earth, and we would have another Noah's flood, and God put his bow in the rainbow shows to show us he's never going to do that again, and he's still in control. So there is more cock and bull. How can you get to the the moon, I believe, is under the firmament. Yeah, you could, but they didn't get to the moon. Remember the pictures of the moon where the flag was blowing? Yeah, I do. And they were telling us it's a vacuum. They never went to the moon. And they're telling us it was a vacuum. I think that they could get up with aircraft or whatever, maybe 60, 70,000 feet. That's about it. If you take their model, there's a vacuum in space. So how do you move a missile in a vacuum? Oh, you burn rocket fuel. Oh, yeah? And how are you going to have combustion in a vacuum? There's no oxygen to feed the fire. How would you have combustion? You couldn't. You wouldn't have combustion. Oh, they just bring an oxygen tank. Uh-huh. No, I don't think so. You know how big that would have to be? And I don't know what, if you released oxygen in a vacuum, it would just go all over the place. You can't do it. It's just, by their own logic, it's impossible. The Bible says there are four angels standing on the four corners of the earth. Okay, here's a round ball earth. How do you have four angels on the four corners of a round ball? You don't. But if the earth was flat, you do. The Bible tells us in many places the earth is immovable. They tell us it's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. If you jumped up in the air and the surface was spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, how could you land in the same place? You'd smash into the wall. As the earth was spinning, the wall in your room would come plow into you at 1,000 miles an hour. Oh, no, Moshe, you're wrong. When you jump up 1,000 miles an hour, you'd be moving at 1,000 miles an hour also. When we were kids, teenagers, we used to go, friends of ours, some of us had convertibles, right? And if you take something and throw it out of a convertible at 50 miles an hour, and you manage to throw it up 10 or 15 feet, it's going to go, when it comes down, it's going to hit one of the cars behind you. It's never going to come down in the same place in the car. Yet by that logic, when you throw the ball up out of your convertible at 60, the ball's moving at 60 and it should land right back in the car. Yet we all know it won't do that. Try it on a bicycle and you'll get the idea. It won't work on a bicycle either. It's all full of lies. You go to grade school and you sit down and the teacher's in front of you and she's got the Dick and Jane book. You got a little book on your desk and she's got a 3-foot book on the wall. And she has a spinning round ball earth globe on her desk. And that's when Satan goes to work on you. How could the water in the ocean stay flat if it was a round ball? The water would wash up on land and the oceans wouldn't have water. How could an optical or a laser missile go across the water? So how do they have an ICBM? They don't. It's bullcrap. Do you think that Pakistan and India really have nukes and they're going to nuke each other over this fight they got? Have we ever seen nukes used? What happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki were aerial fuel bombs. The cherry blossom trees outside Hiroshima and Nagasaki bloomed the next season. There's a rather important bank building that was right at the edge of the blast zone and had its windows blown out. It was a brick building. They replaced the windows and went back and opened a couple of days later for business, and nobody glowed in the dark. Cherry blossom trees bloomed the next season. The damage in Tokyo, which they admit was a fuel bomb, was identical to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The houses in Japan a lot of them were made out of paper and wood. And that's what America used in Hamburg and other cities in Germany, fuel bombs. They're very deadly. Very, very deadly. I think it was China's working on a fuel bomb now, or something like that. They detonate in the atmosphere and they're really dangerous and they're very deadly. And they cause a lot of fires and stuff like that. And that girl, you see the picture of her, she was about 9 years old, 11 years old, running around naked from the explosion. Her clothes were blown off her. They were probably burned off her. And she was alive a few years ago. She didn't die of radiation. She should have. If these schmucks running the world, all these Satan bots running the world, had nuclear weapons, you really believe they wouldn't have used them all this time? And you really believe America and Iran would be provoking each other, and China and America provoking each other and all that stuff? And you believe God would let them have something like that and they wouldn't just wipe Israel off the map and make Israel glow in the dark for 50 years? You believe all this? Why would you believe that? These are the moonwalkers telling you the same cock and bull story. They don't have, back in the 60s, I was on jets, okay? Aside from the fact they had better food, better seats, and were more comfortable and treated you like a human being, they were nice to you, actually. The jets flew at the same speeds as they fly today. Did they have better instrumentation? Probably a little bit better and stuff like that, but they're basically at the same thing. Progress has pretty much stopped. Haven't really gotten much further. Yeah, the drone warfare is really different. Submarines go deeper and this and that. How would they have to get a missile across the ocean? They'd have to have some radar to guide it. Something got to guide it, and that something ain't a satellite, okay? So if they had a series of warships across the ocean in sequence, and you see, a warship can't have a big radar dome like a ground-based military space with a 150, 250-foot radar dome that has a power plug with electricity this thick and going in it. They don't have that on ships. They can probably get a 200 or so mile radar. So they'd have to have a series of ships to guide the missile in. Could they do that? Yeah, they could do it. They could do it. Do submarines under the water guide themselves? But how do they do it? That's interesting, isn't it? I'd have to think about that, but they're probably lying about that. But how could a submarine do it? It's not going to map the water or what's underneath. So what the heck? How do they run a submarine? I guess they have a compass in the submarine that works, and they know how fast they're traveling in what direction. And it's like you look at them in the World War II, movies about submarines. They had a really good one, but it was rinky dink. It wasn't high tech. And the guy would have a table, the navigator guy would have a table with a map, and he had a slide rule for calculations. They didn't have calculators back then. When I was a kid, my father taught me how to use the slide rule. We didn't have calculators. So he had a slide rule and he'd calculate, and he would draw straight lines or different zigzag lines. So they knew the speed of the submarine. Of course, they knew the depth and all that. And they knew the direction, probably from a compass. So they would know where they were headed, precisely with the compass, not just east, north. They had a precise. And they would just draw their path on the map, and they would be able to tell where they were now. And that's done by computer today. And that's how they know where they are, in my opinion. So all this crap, Russia and China are going to shoot nukes into America. Oh my gosh, you can forget that. Can they shoot missiles into America from submarines and warships and drones off the coast of America? You bet. Can they do it at a pretty good distance from the American shore with drones? Yeah, they can get probably quite a few hundred miles and make it. Although I don't know how they're going to navigate the drones into America. They could do it stupidly, like try to have the drone head west and launch it off the east coast of the Atlantic. And, the sucker's going to eventually hit America because America's so big, but where, who knows, Yeah, that would work, Could they do other things? Yeah, there's stuff they could do, but the best thing they could do would be to try to have ships with radar and try to get it in like that, which they could probably get a good, maybe a really advanced country could get 250 or 300 miles out of ship radar. Maybe, I don't even think they could, but 200 miles is plenty. That's pretty far from America. All they really probably have to do is get 40 or 50 miles from America. And then they could easily guide a drone or a missile into a target. They could do that. But again, signals could be jammed. The projectile could be detected and shot down. The British used to knock down Hitler's V-2 missiles with their fighter jets. Fighter jets were faster than the missile, and they get near the missile and they tilt their wings to hit the missile, right? And once they hit the missile, it went off course, right? And it never recovered. Never recovered. Had no ability. So if you believe the Bible, the world is just full of cock and bull stories. Satan wants you to think man could destroy everything, and he can't. They tell you that HAARP controls the weather. It's not true. They tell you all this stuff. If God gave people weather control, if he let them have that, then he wouldn't be in control of the weather. They would do. So he starts sending us a tornado, or, he says, the continuing whirlwind of the Lord shall fall on the head of the wicked until it accomplishes purpose, words to that effect. So they would just be able to stop the continuing whirlwind of the Lord, and they can't. You got to understand that in this age, Satan's the god of this age. It says world. It's not world. It's ion in the Greek. It means age. He's the god of this age, and he runs the age. Okay? And they all serve Satan, so they all lie. He's the father of lies and a murderer from the beginning, and that's how they are. And are they covetous? Yeah, it's all about money. If money was such a great thing, would God let Satan have control of it? Did you ever hear of Satan raising the dead? I never did. You ever hear or read in the Bible of Satan healing the sick or the injured? No, I never did. You can't. Well, what about these healings the satanic church leaders do? Well, I've explained that to you in the past. What they do is they find somebody. Remember there was, Yeshua talked about this daughter of Abraham. She was stooped over or something, and he got the demon out of her and she got healed. Well, you see, and maybe I could find that for you. You should read that, and I'll show you how they lie to you. Give me a moment to pull it up. Bible verse, daughter of Abraham. Maybe Luke 13:10. Yeah, let's try that. Luke 13:10. And he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And behold, there was a woman which had a spirit of infirmity 18 years and was bowed together and could in no wise lift up. So she probably was bent over in the back severely. And when Yeshua saw her, he called her to him and said unto her, Woman, thou art loosed from thy infirmity. And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified God. And the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation. Yeah, he was a Satan bot, because that Yeshua had healed on the Sabbath, and said unto the people, There are 6 days in which men ought to work in them. Recompense thee, for thou shalt be recompensed at the resurrection of the just. Oh, sorry, this thing jumped on me. This iPad is getting problematic. Sorry. It's still usable, but it's just gives me trouble all the time. And the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation, because Yeshua had healed on the Sabbath, and said unto the people, Therefore 6 days in which men ought to work in them, therefore come and be healed, and not on the Sabbath day. The Lord then answered him and said, Thou hypocrite, doth not each one of you on the Sabbath loose his ox or ass from the stall, and lead him away to watering? And ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan hath bound lo these 18 years, be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath day? And when he had said these, and Yeshua answering spake unto the lawyer and the Pharisee, saying, Is it lawful to heal? No, it's jumping on me again. This thing is crazy. You just move your finger near the screen, it jumps around. So Yeshua answered him quite well, of course, and the guy was attacking him because he can't heal. And he was working with the unclean spirits, like all the religious leaders at that time probably were, or a good amount of them anyway, some of them anyway, you know. And, so there was such a thing as a demon causing this woman to be bowed over. So how do the false teachers get the healing in their meetings? The big, the Shambach of the past, and the Billy Grahams and those idiots, right? How did they do it? Well, they got demons, and the demons know who has the demon, right? They could see the spiritual things. Okay. So people are coming into the meeting, and they can detect who has an unclean spirit, and they see the person limping with their arms twisted or something like that, right? And the demon goes to the demon in the person that came to the meeting. Hey, we're going to play a game here. Release the person that you're causing to limp or cripple. Release them, and you could stay in them. Just stop hurting them. And we're going to do a phony healing on this person, and this person's going to run around like they're being healed, and then wait a couple of weeks and then do it again. And you hear a lot of times people get healed at these meetings, and then a few weeks or months later, it comes back. That's how it's done. It's all sleight of hand. You want to play games with them when you see lion tamers or things like that, with greatly trained animals, throw the demons out of them. It's out of the animal and the guy too, and then watch the fun. You could get these guys killed, so you got to be careful about doing that. But How do you think they do it? You think they're such good animal trainers? You go to SeaWorld and they got the trained fish that jump out of the water and stuff like that. Give it a shot. Throw the demon out of the trainers and throw the demons out of the fish and watch the fun. Show canceled, probably. Fish behaving weird. Yeah, the fish is being a fish, not a compliant human. Demons cannot go into inanimate objects, okay? Into, I said. That doesn't mean a demon can't be inside a car or can't be inside of a building or a house. It's not going to be in a bottle of soda or a bottle of water or a sandwich or something. They don't go in inanimate objects. Could they go in a bug? Yeah. A snake? Yeah. A bird? Yeah. It's got to be a living thing they can go in. I don't see why they couldn't go in a fish. Why not? I mean, you could throw the thing out of it. That's the easy way. So, they do a lot of, deceptive things, and that's what it is. They have no real power, okay? They work with eye contact, all right? What the evil eye looks like is, I'm not doing it. They go with one eye, they close it, and they go down like this, or they go like that, and they close it, something like that. And they're cursing you when they do that. Then just throw the unclean spirits out of them. That's all. Boom. That'll scare the daylights out of them because you can throw their gods out of them. Generally, they're not the same anymore. Now, the ones that are in the church world are trained how to deal with this if it happens. But this still rattles them tremendously, I'll tell you right now. Just wearing dark sunglasses stops them from being able to do their eye contact stuff. They look intensely in your eyes when they do it. And it's only going to work when they got a demon in them, as far as I know. I can't imagine it working without a demon in them. And they sometimes can tell things about you. And they try to control you and stuff like that. So it says in, I think, Proverbs 26, a causeless curse shall not land. So if you're not giving place to the devil, it ain't going to work. They don't know that, but that's the reality. To them, it's so sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. They don't understand the scriptures. So you can also cancel all the spells, witchcraft, sorcery, and other stuff they did. They don't ever teach this in any of their churches. But you go to Luke 10. I'll have to find the verse. Is it really Luke 10? Wait a minute. I don't remember now. Let's see. It could be. I think it's Luke 10. It is Luke 10. Verse 17. And the 70 returned again with joy, saying, Lord, even the devils are subject unto us through thy name. That means they're submitted to us. Submitted. Get it? Okay. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. So at this time, Yeshua already saw it happen. I beheld is a past tense word. Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions. He is probably likely talking about the demons and also the locusts that are going to come out of the pit in Revelation 9 when the beast descends, or in close proximity to the time of his ascension, that have stingers like scorpions or stingers like serpents. It's probably both. And over all the power of the enemy. So whatever Satan could do, you could undo. So can you say, let's say the person's name is John Doe. I cancel any and all witchcraft, sorcery, spells, enchantments ever emanated forth by John Doe or any other persons on his behalf. All such things are cast null and void for all time. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Ba is in, Shem is name, Yeshua is his name, Ha means the, Mashiach means the anointed or Messiah, they like to say. It really means anointed. And nothing shall by any means hurt you. So that means that there's no retaliation against you. Satan ain't retaliating for that. So you not only could demon toss him, you could cancel their witchcraft spells, sorceries, enchantments. Now, normally when you demon toss a person, in my experience, all the witchcraft and spells and stuff they did is evaporated. It goes away. It's not around anymore. But he also says, notwithstanding in this, rejoice not that the spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven, the book of life. Okay, that's the big important thing, not pushing around a bunch of failed angels, which are demons, I assume. So you can do a lot of things, but what does Mark 16:17 say? And these signs shall follow them that believe. Okay, so you believe you're a believer. So do these signs follow you? I'm going to just read one. In my name shall they cast out devils. I'll keep reading. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents. And if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. Now, recover in other places says raise them up. It's not always going to be zippity-doo-dah, boom, you're healed. It may take a little time or some time or days or something to get healed, but you'll get there. Now, we don't have that ability because we can't lay hands over the internet, but we do get a lot of answered prayer for the sick. If you want to put a prayer request in for some sick person, and I would say even if they are in the Lord or not in the Lord, tell them, would it be okay with you if I put a prayer request in with these people on the internet, and you may have hundreds of people pray for you in the name of Yeshua the Messiah or Yeshua HaMashiach, would that be okay with you? And if they say no, they said no. Remember, Yeshua would heal all that came to him. He didn't go grab people off the street and say, hey, I'm the Messiah, you want me to pray for you? No, they came to him. So this is a form of having them come to him in a way, right? Not exactly, but then if they get healed, they should know is from Yeshua. Whereas if you don't tell them and they get healed, oh boy, Dr. Schwartz is really some doctor. Look how much better I got. You see the problem? Or maybe it comes out, Dr. Schwartz is a schmuck. I was never really sick. Look at me now. I'm perfectly okay. You get the idea? Okay, so you tell them. If you want to check back with them, that's fine. It's up to you. It's up to you. It's this holiday they started with, this Independence Day. It just won't go away. It's thrown my life all the way up in upheaval. Everything stopped. I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't check. I tracked their Passover holidays, their this, their that. But this got me off guard. It's just, they just love this holiday. They love it. I mean, I can't get behind it because it's Independence Day. Who did Israel ever declare independence from in 1948? Nobody. Who? Nobody. What happened? The British left early the mandate for them to leave what they called Palestine then. And they left on May 15th, 1948 and washed their hands of the whole place. They left lock, stock, and barrel. So who was Israel declaring independence from? The British didn't say anything. They just said, we're done. I don't understand. I don't get it. And then the Arabs attacked us right after that. What I think they did is they changed the name to Israel. It shouldn't have been Israel. It should have been Judah, or Judah and Jerusalem, because that's how the Lord refers to us at this point in time, not Israel. Israel is when we get the land back from Genesis 15, from the Euphrates to the Nile, which is about 100 times more than we have now. And the 10 tribes are back, which they're not here. Basically, practically everybody here now is from Judah or Levi, with a very small amount of Benjamin and maybe tiny bit of another tribe or something. But they're not here, the 10 tribes. So when the 10 tribes are here, and we have the land, and then we become Israel. So I think they made it Israel because they knew that the Arabs were going to attack us. And what you don't know, but you can check in Google, is America and the United Nations at that time had an arms embargo on Israel, and Israel could not buy weapons. It went to Czechoslovakia and bought some old junky, busted up World War II weapons, which is refurbished. So they were expecting Israel to get wiped out. And that's one of the reasons why they approved calling it Israel, because they figured they may as well just cancel Bible prophecy. These idiots made an Israel, and the Arabs came and exterminated them. So that will serve to tell the Jews never to make an Israel again. So instead, they modified it and went to a fake Israel after that, which is what we've had this whole time. But that's coming to an end. Read Zechariah 12, and that's already in progress. Zechariah chapter 12, it's already in progress. And you'll see the two witnesses burning up the enemies surrounding Israel, the left and the right hand. But church never teaches you that. Let me see if I have any questions in the chat or the live stream, whatever you want to call it. The big channels get the same problems with the people with nasty remarks. How fast is Ukraine going to lose? I don't know. Germany, okay. Well, people are saying the plane took off out of the hangar. There's no hangar on the deck of an aircraft carrier. It's flat. I've been on them. They're flat. It's a possibility that the jet got shot when it was on the deck of the top. Guys, when they say AIPAC, that's a Jewish organization that the haters and the anti Semites say control the White House, which is nonsense. So that's an anti Semitic remark. So that's why we take this away. It's, of course, not true. Carriers are flat, but when they make sharp turns, they mean, yeah, it could have gotten thrown off. If it did get thrown off, it would have been because some ordnance, a missile, a rocket, a drone, or something was coming at it. A torpedo. In World War II, they'd swerve when torpedoes were coming, and they were very abrupt. Yeah. But that would make the American Defense Department really mad at the Houthis because they were trying to kill the aircraft carrier. Now, if they hit a jet on an aircraft carrier, it'd be worse. It supposedly was a drone attack. And the drone may have attacked the plane on the deck, and it maybe didn't hit the plane, it landed near the plane, maybe 2 or 3 feet away or something, and the explosion threw the plane off the deck. I don't know what happened. In either case, it got the Americans very, very mad. Because I'm sure war was behind this. I don't think the captain of the aircraft carrier just decided to swerve because he wanted to watch a flock of whales or something. You know, it was life threatening. And they didn't fire the captain. I mean, they think he took correct action. So something bad happened. I don't know what. You know. And the story is just pieces. It's bits and pieces. We're not getting the whole thing. And the Houthis do lie a lot. But I don't know. But it got the Americans mad. That you can take to the bank. They got real mad about it. And they should. And it also goes to show you that after like 6 weeks of heavy bombing, the Houthis are still very functional. And then you have to ask yourself what it's going to look like with Iran. Right? Which is probably at least 10 times stronger than the Houthis. It could be 25 times stronger. It's going to be a rough one. A rough one. But you see China and Iran are painted into a corner right now. And what's Russia going to do when the $50 billion of weapons hits Ukraine, which is going to probably start coming in real soon? And now Trump wants to protect his investment in the precious metals and minerals. So better weapons are going to flow to Ukraine. And I'm rather sure they're going to upgrade them to 300-mile range missiles. If it exists, because I don't know how you're going to guide it that way, but you'd need better radar. But he might have better radar. I don't know. American could help him with AWACS. I think AWACS guide missiles too. So he could help him with that, but they'll figure out a way to help him. And then as the number of oil refineries keep increasing in Russia and the more and more ammo and missile depots and food and fuel storage facilities get destroyed and railroad tracks get destroyed because Russia moves military equipment by train mostly, it pushes Putin, and Putin further in the corner and makes a peace deal with Ukraine more and more likely. But I don't think you're going to see the peace deal. No. I think you're going to see a lot of countries get together to try to get rid of America because it's too problematic for them. It really is. That's what I got for today. Please pray that Beulah doesn't jump out of the yard anymore, and pray that my friend gets over here soon to help me fortify blocking Beulah from jumping the fence. Pray for me and my wife for our peace, safety, protection, joy, healing of our bodies. Pray for our finances. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray I do better videos. Pray for the 2 witnesses to start working openly very soon. That's real important. Read Zechariah 12:6. You'll see them working there. They're calling them the governors. They're really rulers. Judges, actually, is what they are. In Isaiah 1, God says he's going to run Israel with the judges again, along with the 70 counselors. And a judge is a prophet, and the 2 witnesses in Revelation 11 are prophets, so that's who they are. Elijah and Apostle John, that's what you got. It can't be Moses. It says in the word, it's elected unto man to die only once, and we know Moses died, and we know the 2 witnesses died, so forget Moses. It's impossible. I know they teach it, but they teach a lot of garbage, What churches run around telling you that these weapons that these nations say they have don't exist, like I just did today? And what churches run around telling you that the earth can't be a round spinning ball, like I just did today? They start doing that, they're going to lose their tax-free status. Well, they don't want that. No. So I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I'm out, and I hope you got something out of this, and you might want to subscribe if you want to get a lot of updates as to what's going on, particularly in the Middle East. I'm reasonably good with Ukraine and China, but I'm pretty good with America, and I'm pretty good with the Middle East, especially Israel. I do okay with America too, but my emphasis area in Ukraine and China, and I dig deep and get a lot of information, but I don't have all the insights in those countries like I do have with America and the Middle East. But what I do know is the Bible prophecies, and that's what I'm really here for. The Bible prophecies, and show you what's really going to happen, because the Bible always comes true. And that's what I work at the best. And I'm out. So if you want the news combined with the Bible prophecy, the real Bible prophecy, I'm your guy. I'm out.